Well, welcome, bienvenida, Teresa Maria Alarcos Tamayo. Welcome.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here with you in your podcast, which was recommended by a very common friend, Lisa.
Shout out to Lisa, absolutely.
Yes.
She's the best.
Yes, fantastic.
She said you were definitely a leader who cares. So now we're going to tell the world why you're a leader who cares. So if you could start by briefly introducing yourself, not companies, not business yet, but just tell us about where you're born, where you are now, family, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So, Mark, thank you for this opportunity. As you said, my name is Teresa. I am a medical doctor, but I never practice. I always want to take care of people, but not in the medical way, in other ways. So I studied business administration in different business schools, and I am married for more than 20 years, and I have two kids, teenagers. I'm trying to guide them in this world that has a lot of opportunities and at the same time challenges. And I love my family. I love my profession. I am board member at this stage of my life after 20 years in different companies.
We'll get into the companies in a minute. But where are you right now? Where do you live right now?
I live in Madrid, in Spain. I have been in Paris, in the US, in England, and I live with my family in Madrid. And what else?
Hablas español, you speak English, any other languages?
Yes, I speak English, French, Italian, Spanish, and I understand Catalan, and I don't understand Euskera, Basque. My husband is Basque, but I don't understand. I know some words because it's so different from any other language that I don't understand. But I can manage in several languages. And
that's amazing.
And I, at this stage, I also teach in different business schools. I'll teach.
We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. And you're going too fast for me. So when you spoke about your teenagers. When you were a teenager or a kid, were you like a Barbie, or were you a tomboy, or did you read a lot? Did you watch movies? What were you like as a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was very introverted. I used to do many things. I was like the revolutionary was the name, my nickname in the house, because I was always looking for new things. I was painting. I was looking for something to do, playing the piano, doing ballet, learning in Italian. Always wanted to do something else more. I was very curious. Curiosity, if I have to tell you something, I was very curious about the world, about traveling, about different cultures, about many things. I was interested in all of the topics, but I had a preference in sciences. Always how the body works, how the mind works, nature. In fact, when I was a little girl, I used to do a lot of planting, different kinds of plants, experiment with the plants, put one piece of one plant in another one. So this kind of stuff.
You were mating the plants. You were having them mate the two plants together.
Yeah, I was taking one stem from one plant and put it on another plant to try to make roots in the other plant, so that if something was going to eat.
That's an interesting.
So this was my hobbies. I like very much animals. I had 2 canaries. I had 5 different kinds of birds. I had hamsters. I had 2 rabbits and 2 dogs. I was the animal person in the family. So
Nice. That's the best
yeah.
person to be, because they're the ones that love us the most.
Yes, yes.
So you talked about education a little bit before. Obviously that's a big love. You got your MBA. Is it Asada? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, yes. He's an
Asada.
international.
And then you
in,
got your PhD in public health policy, and then you got your
yes,
master's in executive e-business at IE Business School. So you got just like you did
right.
with the plants, you got everything together.
Yeah.
And then along the way, you were involved in education and governance and innovation and then women on boards and so on. So what intrigued you to do that, so much of that diversity of education?
You know, because I was open to the world, so I could see the movements and the needs and the trends. So when I was at Lycos Europe, Lycos was like Google before Google existed. There was one search engine that was called Lycos Europe of Bertelsmann Group. So I went to Lycos Europe without knowing a lot of innovation, without knowing a lot of technology. So my company paid me that e-business masters. It was 24 years ago. So it was the first edition, I think, in the whole Europe of this kind of masters. Before that, I was in a publishing traditional company, which was Vivendi Publishing. I tell you that it was my first serious job and I was in a book company, a media company, very traditional, family owned, belonging to a very big group afterwards. And internet was alive in the times that I was enrolling that company. So I was curious about what was internet about. My CEO said, Teresa, I cannot go to something that they call internet. Maybe you would like to go. And I went there and I said, I had my eyes open like this. And I said, oh, there is a huge opportunity for us, a traditional printing company of books, journals, to make new business units and provide with these services to these audiences, especially scientists who were the people that at that time in the 90s, at early 90s, who were using technology to investigate and to share their findings. So that was the germ of my interest in innovation. Also, I am also influenced by my father. He was very curious as well. He was all the time innovating he was ENT surgeon, specialized especially in throat and ear, but he was very specialized in the voice. And he was all the time measuring things with data, things that now are very common, but he used to do like 40 or 50 years ago.
That's brilliant.
So this influence provided me that. And also my mother was entrepreneurial. She had a clinic. So these two things made me like the person I am, a curious person, and also the generosity that they provided me and the freedom, because at that time, girls, we didn't have a lot of freedom to choose what I wanted.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 3 brothers, so I was the only girl. So I was overprotected by bodyguards, 2 older and 1 younger. So for me, that was a little bit, I had a lot of pressure of them because they, no, you don't. I say, hey, please, this is my space, leave me alone. I had a very good grandfather who said, leave the girl, do what she wants. My grandfather was defending me from all of the overprotection from my brothers. So I was very lucky to have that balance.
I think I found your twin in Thailand, actually, because I
Yes.
spoke to a woman executive there in Thailand, similar, protecting the woman because they didn't have as much as now, and 3 brothers and a grandfather. The grandfather, her too, said, you got to go for it. And they were trying to figure out, give her the best education so she can have the best tools to be as good as she can be. So I think I found your twin in Thailand, exactly the same story.
That would be great to meet her. But yes, it was that times in Spain we were in the time of changing from one regime that was very close to democracy. In the times that I started university, it was less than 15 years that we were in a democracy. So there were a lot of traditions that had not changed yet at that time. So during my studies, I went to the US, to MSU University, Michigan State University, with a scholarship, which was not very common. So I was open to the world, and more than my brothers. If we were at this time, maybe I would have been living in the US. But at that time, my parents say, no, you better stay here in Europe. They were more traditional. But I at the end, I went, because when I was in one of the telecom companies I work here in Spain, Vodafone, Ono, my company paid me an executive program in Harvard Business School. So I had the opportunity to be for a good period in the US doing the project for the company. And also I had the scholarships after that in MIT, in another scholarship with Banco Santander for board management in UCLA Anderson. So I had a lot of opportunities. I look for them and try not to lose any opportunity to learn. And at the end, what makes me a lot of pleasure is to share this huge network that I built without an objective. I built such amazing big network that makes me a pleasure to share with people who need that network to build the project. So, and that's how I meet Lisa, because I have a very good friend who is working in a venture capital as the head of that venture capital, and she's a very good friend, and we are in a program for women in STEM to inspire little girls to be in these careers. And she's just arrived in Spain, and I met her there, and she called me like 1 week before our international congress. She said, Teresa, I am interested in being a speaker in that roundtable. I'm sure that it's closed. And I said, no, it's open. We don't have any problem, because you have an opportunity to talk to such amazing women and men who are more interested in this, in reunite with women who have ideas and who want to work together with men.
And tell everybody what the name of your network is. What is it?
Yes, the network is WG Startup Community, which is on the back, and we have 4 areas of approach to society. One is an international congress where Lisa was a speaker, which is Inspiring Women Leaders in the Digital Era. Is going to be the 10th anniversary. So maybe, Mark, we can invite you to talk about your Women Who Care. I hope so. The funds, but that will be a pleasure for me. Then we created an observatory. We reunite more than 22 nationalities in this Congress. We provide free access to women so that they learn about the usage of technology without paying. If they work in a company, medium-sized company, they can go and approach to the people who are already involved in blockchain, in AI, in quantum, in robotics, and they are providing the usage in different industries, and they can say, Eureka, I can do that in my industry and improve the client experience, whatever. So we put together the ecosystem, corporations, startups, investors, technological institutes, and also the academia and the governments, the local governments, and the European Union. We invite them, and they sometimes come. So I think there is a lot of energy, positive energy, and a lot of outputs after the Congress, and a huge network, a huge and intense network that helps women to expand their networks, but also to grow their objectives and their vision of their career paths.
Well, you know, first of all, congratulations. I'm super impressed with that, but I'm also super happy about that because, in fact, our firm, Fifth Element, we launched it on International Women's Day in 2018, and at the UN World Headquarters, and we started with the Decade of Women, and then we've done a lot in women leadership and women empowerment and access for women, and in fact, recently. We actually placed the chief executive officer of the National Women's History Museum as well. So I love what you're doing, you know, with women and giving more a voice, especially since over 50% of the workforce is now women and growing. And you absolutely need that diversity. It's not just woman-man diversity, it's ideas and perspectives and things like that. So with respect to that, you talked about it a little bit. You understand why the importance is of offering what you're offering to women. Share with us a little bit about how you describe your journey as a woman in some of those big companies and, you know, different types of partnerships, different cultures, different traditions, as you said. How did you navigate and thrive to get to the point you are now? Because the times were different.
Okay, so I think my mindset have changed a lot since the very beginning, because I was, let's say, as I told you, I was very introvert and insecure at the very beginning. I only had knowledge, but I didn't know how to navigate very well in companies where I was director and I was surrounded by committees that were all men. Right. So for me, I was shy. Sometimes I had my mouth very shut, because I didn't dare to tell my ideas. So this has changed. A lot. You know, I don't care if I fail. I was very afraid of failing at the beginning. Right. You know, girl, I had a teacher in professor at UCLA. She's a Harvard MBA. This woman coming from Israel, and she said that we think that we feel very bad when we fail, and we shouldn't. The path of learning is failing, right. And the culture that we were educated in is more a culture of achieving knowledge and to reach excellence, rather than to build and collaborate together and build networks to create better knowledge together, no, building ideas through others' thoughts, no. So I think that during my journey, I can tell you that this was a huge learning, and also the emotional part. You know, I really felt bad about many things, about a lot pressure about in my journey when we had to achieve some kind of goals and to compete internally with people. I was not comfortable in that atmosphere, because, you know, I love doing things. I am a doer. Right. You know, in my times, being a doer was, you are a doer. You are not a strategic. You don't have a strategic mind. And I said, okay, I'm a doer, but I build ideas and I know how to create new things. So this contradiction has chased me all my life. And now I feel confident that, and I feel happy about being a doer and about my teams. I used to also work, you know, so roll up sleeves. And this is my character. Also, another thing that I learned in my journey was how to lead teams, how to grow my team and help them in their career paths. For me, at the beginning of my career, it was the objective. And I was like, straight to the objective. And then I relaxed and I said, I had a very good school at Eli Lilly. They taught me how to manage high performance teams, how to develop them with sophisticated tools. So these things I didn't learn in any masters in anywhere.
That was real life education. And they say that the biggest legacy anybody could have is developing other leaders to do just as good as them. And that could be in sports, it could be in business, even in family. Developing other leaders to, like you said earlier, with your kids, go their own path and have the passion they want to do, and be confident to do it. So it sounds like you've done that for sure. And but I know, I've seen in boardrooms, sometimes a woman will offer this thing, and then a man says the exact same thing, and everybody's listening. And hopefully, I know it's changed to some degree, but it's still some work to do in that.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you this. We founded our company, Fifth Element, on the fact that leaders can always do better for their business when they're doing good at the same time. You got to think of, I was just at a women's advancement conference, and they're talking about economic profit and social profit at the same time. Can you share with us how you've been on boards and how you've impacted boards with their strategy around their talent, their innovation, their governance? And also, I saw in some of the background I saw of you, also integrity, which is like respect and trust, which I think is unfortunately become less important, but it actually should be more important as well. Can you share how you've worked on boards and impacted them on these topics?
Yeah. So let me tell you how I reach boards. When I had my kids 15 years ago, I had a break in my career because I was an executive working so many hours. I didn't care. My husband was doing the same. So we were very happy. But when you have kids, you have to make choices.
Right.
You as a family have to make decisions. And both of the couple cannot go at 200 kilometers per hour. Maybe you slow down a little bit, and then once you have the opportunity, you can, because otherwise it doesn't work. So I made that choice, conscious, and I was I had a little education on boards, and I had the opportunity 15 years ago, to work in a company of AI, and my background and biotechnology sciences. So they were using algorithms to provide tools to doctors to make a better choice of treatments in first intention, so that it was the right choice in a higher percentage. Because when you treat cancer people with this kind of treatments that are so strong, the health of the person is very weak to change that treatment in a second intention. So they provided that. So I was very happy to be in that kind of companies, and it was a board. So I had like 2 or 1 meeting per month, so I could take care of my family. I could also be involved in business in a space that I am familiarized with, which is, so I started like this in boards. So I said to myself, I need to learn more about boards and how they work.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied in a very prestigious school here of boards. You have to do very hard exams like this, 6, something like that. It's not a paper, you go there and listen. No, you need to really be aware of what's going on, the last changes in good governance, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, and then all my life, honestly, my grandfather used to say one thing that I have very written in my heart: you always learn from everybody. It doesn't matter where they come from and where their lives have been. Listen, because you can learn from everybody. So I always listen to people, no matter what they do, what they are, and what they have studied. I don't care. Also, my family have been, my father, especially my father, has been very, let's say, he was very religious, but not of going to church, very religious in the sense of generosity. He was a doctor, and he was very caring of his patients, but also he was very caring of the people who couldn't have access to his knowledge, his practice. And he was, and this example of is changing my life, and really inspired me. My grandfather, my mother, and my father, both of them. And as the only woman of the family, I said, I need to support women because I had found some barriers and some practices that I didn't like. So that's the woman thing that really was spontaneous, because I was executive director and I was launching a very important brand. Some girls were calling me like 12 years ago, please, could you help me launching my startup, because I don't know how to approach this market. I said, okay, let's have a coffee. It was like, so it was emerging from spontaneously. So, and it arrived one moment that I couldn't dare so many calls to face all the work that it was emerging related to women who wanted to be entrepreneurs. So I called my friends, do you want to support this woman in this topic? Because I'm not an expert on that. And yes. So that's how it emerged. So we created a club, let's say, then a legal association, and then a congress, and then an observatory, and then prizes, and then we created scholarships and educational programs. So, but it was not planified. It was like the inertia, we chased the inertia and the needs of people who were approaching us. And ESG always have been, when I was in the publishing company, and I said, how I was printing I was digitizing everything, and the paper I was using, it was recycled paper, and I had a green certification, but I'm talking to you 35 years ago. So I had the sensibility for that. So I said, now I look backwards and I said, I had that sensibility. I don't know why, but.
Well, we come a long way. It used to be years ago, and it's not that long ago, that the wife actually had to ask the husband if she could go get a job, just get permission to get a job. I remember one of the Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she started out, she had to ask her husband if she can, on an interview, they said, did your husband allow you to come for this job interview? So it's come a long way for sure, but there's still a long way to go. And it's fantastic, the opportunity that you are giving women. And it sounds like your grandfather and your father, et cetera, with the generosity and everything, had a big part of that. Now, you mentioned earlier about when you saw the internet, it was like, boom, it was like amazing. And I remember talking to clients too, and some of them were saying, yeah, this is great. Some of them were saying, I don't need that, which was stupid. But, the fourth industrial revolution has been noted as technology, and now AI is coming on strong. It's kind of like you described the internet before. AI is even bigger and faster and stuff. And but the fifth industrial revolution, they say, is about humanity. And we like to focus on how impact and talent come together very often, and how, as I mentioned, there's economic profit, but there's also social profit. So AI is coming on super fast. We're finding that leadership skills, they call them soft skills, we've changed the name of soft skills to power skills. Those are going to become super important because AI is going to be doing so many other things. And then there's conflict that happens a lot too, which a lot of times conflict is the reason for startups, especially, to not make it. Not just money, but the conflict between founders and investors. And we have programs we're working on, like I mentioned to you before, called Nonflict and things like that. Share with us a little bit how you see AI and technology coming together with humanity in terms of ethics, in terms of opportunity, et cetera. And I do want to mention, maybe you can talk about this too. You are the author of a book called Emprendedoras, las líderes que cambian el mundo en la era digital. There you go. You're reading, you got me the English one. I'm doing the Spanish one.
Strange Journeys and Outcomes, the future emerging unicorns. This is in English. So a lot of questions. But what I think is that when something is changing and there is one innovation, you need to learn about that. You need to just embrace it. And always in technology, there is a dark side, like Star Wars, the dark side and good side. So in Europe, we have the first law framework for artificial intelligence in order to protect the consumer and the privacy, and in order to have ethics in the usage of this technology. And I think it's good, because with AI, you can manipulate. We have Cambridge Analytics. We know how to use AI for bad. But we don't have to reject, to say no to technology because it has a bad side. We need to take the good uses of technology in order to democratize knowledge, in order to have better medicine, to provide with better tools to doctors so that they can have diagnose better the diseases, and the cost is less, so that more people can have access to these services, also to education. So I think when something is new, you need to learn about that. You need to get attached to, we say, you need to adopt this new, let's say, the new people. You need to adopt them and to be very close to them, so that you learn from them, because they know more than you.
Wouldn't you say, especially since you're coming from a family of medical people, healthcare people, that AI is going to affect a lot of industries, but healthcare seems to be the one that could have the most positive impact on humanity?
Yes, for sure. Imagine all the now the melanomas you can diagnose it very quickly, because it was the eyes of a dermatologist or a very big amplifier. So now you can do that with tissues. You can do that with endoscopies, with the image of a tissue, with the image of my face. You can diagnose Parkinson, because you realize that something is wrong with the movements. If you are tracking images of one human being for many years, you can diagnose and anticipate diagnosis, so that we can have a better quality of life. We can be wealthier also, because we save more money. And but AI also save a lot of energy. AI save a lot of let's say a cost to the companies, because they optimize things. So
and just like when the internet came, sure, you lose some jobs, but new jobs come up, new opportunities come up all the time.
Of course. And humans don't like to do things, to repeat things, to repeat duties. Humans like to have these conversations, Mark, like we are having now, building new ideas, building new paths, exchanging programs, exchanging ideas, so that maybe we can build together things, and in order to look for solutions of the problems that are emerging now. But we don't have to be afraid of losing jobs, as you said, because these jobs are like the jobs in the past that we have lost, that we don't have to have them. So, but there are still in some continents, Sure.
It reminds me of what you said before about your father, wanted to make sure that the knowledge got to a lot more people. That a lot more people could share. AI is one of those things that can actually provide the knowledge to a lot more people. And I remember there's a fellow in the United States. His name is Bill Bradley. He used to be a basketball star, NBA, but he also was a senator. And he did a documentary recently, and he said his mother or his grandmother told him to never look down on people you don't understand. And I thought it was brilliant. And you reminded me when you said what your father and your grandfather felt like, just because you don't understand people, maybe you think they're lower than you, they've got value. Everybody has value. And if you give them knowledge, they can take advantage of it. And I think that's what AI may be able to achieve also.
Sure, for sure. I think that when you have different backgrounds and you have lived different experiences, underprivileged experiences and privileged experiences, exchanging experiences make you stronger and make you, sometimes you say, Eureka, you highlight something that you have inside that would have not come out if you have not had that conversation. So
that's a very good point.
Yes.
It's a very good point, because we focus on experiences. When companies retain us to find talent, we focus on actual experiences, not years of experience, but actual experiences. So I get what you're saying. I have one more question on this part. Like we usually say in Los Angeles, we have to leave the audience wanting more so we can do a sequel, I guess. We may have to do a sequel, but I have one more question on this part. I remember a client telling me in 2021 or somewhere around there, he said the year 2020, the pandemic, was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought it was an interesting comment, flew by slowly, because sometimes it feels like it was yesterday and it feels like it was years ago at the same time, 2020. Now we're in 2024 already, amazingly fast. Can you share with us what you're most grateful for and also what you're most hopeful for?
What do you mean hopeful for the future?
First of all, what you're most grateful for where you are now? What are you most grateful for based on everything that's happened?
After the pandemic, now, I feel like I don't have time to such amazing challenges that the society is providing us. Now I am trying to write another book. This is very challenging because I did it in the pandemic, so I had time. I didn't have meetings. I had like peaceful moments in which I could stay alone in the night.
So now are you most hopeful for a peaceful moment?
No, but sometimes you need to say to yourself, stop and think.
Right.
Where do I want to go? I am almost 60. And I said, okay, I am in the boardroom. I cannot be in many boards if I want to go on my career on books. But I like being in the board, but because this provides me financial security, financial revenues, and this provides me with a lot of knowledge, and the boards need to build bridges from the board to ecosystems. So I am now with this idea, and I have written one chapter in one book of boards. I was invited. I said, what do you want to write about? And I said, it was published last week. I said, I want to write about the challenge that boards, which are very traditional, which are very, let's say, profiles that are quite traditional. I need to introduce these conversations that we are having, you and me, Mark. these conversations of the challenges that purpose, that these changes that we are facing now in artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, that we are facing now, how is going to impact the organization, the culture of the organization, and what are the gaps that need to be filled with talent, with education, with communication, because otherwise many companies are going to lose their advantages, but huge companies and little players are going in that spaces and fulfilling the needs of talent who want to work in those little companies because they share the purpose. They provide them with more time to live with their families. They are not as competitive as we were. Young people are more collaborative. They also want time for themselves, for their hobbies, for their lives, to live their lives, because we live once.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think we can be hopeful for, first of all, we can be grateful for leaders who care like you that are paving the way and sharing the knowledge, et cetera. And I think what you said there is we can be hopeful because a lot of young people are they want to make money, but they are trying to make an impact, a positive impact on humanity and make a difference. And if we just keep giving them the tools to do it, they'll achieve. So thank you for being a leader who cares. It's clearly you are one, and I think your family did a good job with that, and you sound like you're doing a good job with yours too. And we look forward to having more conversations with you about things that are happening. So thank you for joining us.
Me too, and I look forward for the programs that you talked about previously about the conflict.
It's going to change the world too.
Change the world too. I'm so happy that in these last 10 years we have impacted more than 10,000, close to 10,000 women who have had access to these programs that are free. Which is the most difficult thing, to have access for free to the new knowledge.
Well, so you can look at that as, like we talked before, a legacy that you provided of developing other leaders who care. So
yes, but it was because there are many leaders who care around me, who have helped in this vision, because otherwise I couldn't do this alone. And the only thing I did alone was to write this book. But the rest, we have a community, and with this community, we are building this network that I would like to enlarge with people who could be interested in the US. We have some people already working with Girls Can Hack in Silicon Valley. We have people working with us, but I would like to enlarge this community and to provide so that they can share their knowledge, and people from Europe, Australia who come to join us, from Israel, from South Africa, can join the people who are listening to us. Thank you so much, Mark. I look forward to a new conversation with you.
I'm sure a lot of people listening are very interested right now. So looking forward to that and assisting you as well. So thank you again so much for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.